Joining us now to discuss is cardiologist and the host of the Good Doctor TV, Dr. Dave Montgomery. Doctor, thank you for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you.
When I think the newest element was that he was had to be resuscitated twice, once on the field, once in the hospital. I think that came out yesterday. Does that give you any insight into his prognosis?
Yeah, I think what the most important part about that is, Larry, is the cause of the second cardiac arrest, right? So while we think that we might have some ideas of why the initial one happens, there are a number of things that can happen in the recovery phase that can cause another arrest. And it's just not a way for us to know exactly. I will tell you as an ICU physician, there are times when we could be doing cardiac, advanced life support on a patient for 30 minutes, and you think the person's not going to do very well. Lo and behold, they walk out of the hospital. So while there are some objective things and we can kind of make a little bit of a prognosis, a lot of this has to do with some individual nuances of the case, which we don't really know, and just the human will to live, quite frankly, which we don't have an objective sort of sense of. So.
And some of those nuances, I'm assuming, would be, was this caused by a blunt trauma to his chest, or did he have an underlying condition he didn't know about? Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's a great. So, Robin, you hit it right on the head. If he has an underlying condition, a pre-existing condition that he may not have even known about, we've seen that before in sports, right? Then that could be the reason why he had a recurrent cardiac arrest, and that indeed would give us some prognostic information. Still, the most important part is going to be the next roughly 48 hours as he sort of recovers from the sedation and the treatments that we give when people have cardiac arrest to see what kind of neurologic response he's going to have, and time will tell.
The uncle said he is less reliant on a ventilator. Can you give us some insight as to what that means, if that is it sounds like he would be trending upwards in that case. But what does that mean? Does that necessarily mean he's conscious?
No, so he's probably not conscious. But what that's saying is an ICU doctor, when anybody's intubated and put into sort of a coma to try to help them recover. This is a medically induced coma. Every day, the ICU physicians are going to try to see if the person can breathe on his or her own. In this particular case, they sort of reduce the oxygen to see if they can start the process of removing the ventilator, the life support. And that's a process that happens over time. And I think that's what he's saying. So 100% is what we intubate people on. We give them full oxygen. And then slowly we see, can they breathe on their own and require less and less oxygen. So it's a good sign, but still time is necessary.
So as a doctor, I'm assuming when you see something like this and your reaction is different than the average person and you're seeing other things, the family's obviously got reason to hope, and there's still a lot we don't know at this point, right? So as a doctor, you're still seeing like things could change on a dime.
Yeah, it's uncanny. Sometimes, as I said before, you would think that a person's not going to do well. As hard as you try with your medical team to try to save that person, you think they'll do poorly. Lo and behold, they do great. And then the opposite can happen as well. And so, I think a lot of attention will be paid to what his recovery will be neurologically as they pull away the sedation, they pull away some of the life support that we use. What is he doing? Is he blinking his eyes? Is he moving on command? Is he breathing on his own? Then we can start to make sort of a more objective sort of prediction about whether or not he'll recover. So still a lot to wait for here.
Well, Dr. Montgomery, we appreciate you joining us this morning. You can follow Dr. Montgomery on Instagram. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you both.